I am Cynthia Davis. I am going to talk to you about hot button issues and domestic tranquility. Just so you know who I am in case anybody's wondering, I am a former state representative, and while I was there, I was the chairman of the Children and Families Committee, which, guess what, talked about domestic issues. I also am currently the executive director for the Center for Marriage Policy, and I am officially titled as the Constitution Party of Missouri's Moral and Social Concerns Director. So now that I've given you my credentials, we're ready to go. First point I want to say is we all must be a good messenger. And what does that mean? Well, we have to know how to articulate what that means. What does that mean to be able to explain the social issues to people? Because you know what? It's a lot easier to talk about federal and national issues. A lot of people get squeamish when it comes to social issues, but we can't afford to mess up on our messaging on something so important because quite a bit of our platform has to do with social issues. There was a little boy who was walking out of church one Sunday morning, and he was shaking the pastor's hand, and he gave him a quarter. And the pastor said to him, "Why are you giving me a quarter? You could have just put that in the offering plate." And he said, No, Pastor. I wanted to give it to you directly because I heard you really needed it bad. My parents said you were the poorest preacher they've ever heard. So the purpose of this talk is to give you some ideas on how you can be a better messenger. So I'm going to be talking about marriage, marijuana, and Common Core. And the benefit of letting you know this ahead of time is so as the talk progresses, you'll know how quick we are getting to the end. So first I want to talk about marriage. And promiscuity in our country is the biggest predictor of whether we will be able to keep our liberty or not. Thank you. I am so honored to speak in front of, you know what, you are a very special group of people. There are very few people in this country who are going to applaud for people being sexually pure. But there's a quote by J.D. Unwin, and he did a study back in the 1930s and wrote a book called In Sex and Culture, and he studied 80 primitive tribes and 6 known civilizations throughout 5,000 years. And so he backs up this claim that we are going to, he says this, the whole of human history does not contain a single instance of a group becoming less civilized unless it has been absolutely monogamous, nor is there any example of a group retaining its culture after it has adopted less rigorous customs. I was taking a walk with my son one day. This was a week ago, for real, around my block, and there's a new Goodwill store that just opened up. And I shocked myself to see this being sold 500 feet from my front door. This is, for those of you who cannot see it, it is a tape that is so bad they had to put it in a brown paper bag. And it says, adult VHS film. Tie me up. That is kind of a funny title, THAI. But it says for 18 and older. Now, what is our Goodwill store doing selling pornography? Has America come to such a point where we now have an organization that claims to be a charity trying to help poor people? And they're selling stuff that is going to bring them down. You don't have to pay sales tax when you go to this store because the government has recognized them as being tax exempt.
In case anybody doesn't know this, VHS film is highly flammable.
They're selling this for $4. And the point is, why are they even, who is making these decisions that that's okay to put it on the shelf? They'd rather make $4 knowing that their children shopping in this store. So let's go on to understanding what marriage is. There is a state interest in knowing to whom people belong. Parenting without marriage invites government to remove our money and remove our freedom and spend our money. A lot of people are asking, why is this a federal issue? Well, you know what? It would be just a state issue, not a national issue, and should be a state issue, except the national government got involved when they defined income tax laws and Social Security laws that now have to affect people. So there's something called cohabitational fraud. That's my word. It's based on the welfare system. Does anybody want to know how to make a quick $75,000 a year? This is seriously on my Facebook page this morning. Somebody posted this. You get a girlfriend, don't marry her. Use your mom's email address for your mail, or your mom's mailing address for your mail. Then you buy a house, then you rent it to your girlfriend, and you can take in $900 a month for Section 8 housing that the government pays you. The girlfriend signs up for Obamacare. She goes to college for free as a single mother. She gets a cell phone. She also gets $600 a month in food stamps. Then you each claim one of the children. In Missouri, I know your states are similar. You can make a lot of money off of not being married. And what's really sad is watching the elderly couples fail to marry because they can get more money and benefits if they don't. So we've encouraged this kind of fraud. However, just in case any of you are seriously considering this, for the lawyers in the room, you'll like hearing about this. There's a concept called meretricious marriage. Meretricious, thank you. I said that 3 times this morning. Meretricious marriage. Don't think you're so smart, buddy, because guess what? It's going to be okay. If you live with each other long enough, you can still get into each other's wallets. The judges can say, if you're acting like you're married, even if you didn't go through court, we can find a way to get at your money. A court can divide your property and debts, and they can treat you like you're married. You can have all you have to have is a marriage-like relationship. Just letting you know, putting you on record in case I sent the wrong message to anybody considering it. Yeah, that's what it looks like, guys. Yeah, that's it. He said, for those of you who didn't hear it, that's government on the left. So the homosexual, I don't like it when we talk about marriage and it automatically becomes a discussion on homosexuality, because that's not what it is. But because the national debate has gone that direction, I want you to know that there are some homosexuals who don't want marriage. And the proof of it is in states that have said you can now get married, a lot of them still are not choosing it. They do want social symbolism. They do want community acceptance. And so they want to mimic what we have. It always has been a mock and a fraud, a mimic of marriage. But what it really, I will tell you, in Washington State, there are 62% of the homosexuals getting married are women. There's always been more in marriage for women than for men. Men are like, wait a minute, explain to me again, why would I want to commit to being monogamous when the whole point behind sexual promiscuity and homosexuality is that you get to not have any restrictions on you? So homosexual marriage, if you will, let it be called that, as it is in some states, is actually a threat to sexual licentiousness. So they're being a little conflicted anyway. Somebody needs to point that out if you're ever in a debate. This is a picture from a website called Gays Against Gay Marriage. I thought it would help explain it to you. Congratulations on obtaining the same rights as straight couples to a lifetime of sexless suburban drudgery. Ha! Little did they know. What they really want, though, are tax breaks. All relationship-based tax breaks, they're saying, should be abolished. Then we can end school taxes, and if you have kids, you pay to educate them. Nobody needs state-recognized marriage for any reason at all. That's true. All the arrangements of marriage can be duplicated with contracts, and I actually had a constituent contact me with a horrible story. Her daughter had become a lesbian, and she and her friend did a fraudulent appearance of a marriage and adopted each other's children. Then they broke up, as they do 87% of the time, and one of them taunted the other one, which led to her committing suicide, and now the lesbian friend got to walk off with the baby, and the grandmother came to me and said, "What can you do about it?" And the lawyer who was helping the family said, there's no reason why this couldn't have been done with a contract. So they don't need marriage. That's the point. They're asking for social acceptance, not legally binding contracts that cannot be achieved in any other manner. So where is the trend heading? There's a Harvard Law School professor who stated that he believes that all 50 states will legislatively adopt same-sex marriage within 10 years if the political process is left to run its course. And of course, what you're seeing at the ballot box is we're losing these wars. However, the U.S. Supreme Court can short-circuit that real quick through judicial fiat coming possibly as soon as June of this year. The sad part about the judicial fiat is it does get rid of the state's role and the citizens' role, because the states and citizens still should have that right to define what we want in our state. So if the U.S. Supreme Court rules the wrong way, you're going to see the inevitable degradation of the legal status of natural parents and the loss of children's rights to know their parents and the severance of the biological definition of parent from its legal definition. What is at stake here is the kids. People are now getting confused about who belongs to who. It was always assumed that if you have a married couple, then the two people in the marriage are the parents. But obviously it can't be true with homosexuality because one of them can't be. So now I'm moving you on to marijuana. And my first point I'd like to make is it's not about liberty, folks, not about liberty. It's about more governmental regulation, control, bureaucracy, employees, and revenue, because they're going to have to hire people to implement all the new rules. It is motivated by revenue generation, and I can guarantee you the states that are moving to legalize it want to get their hand into the taxpayers' dollars another way. Some states are proposing charging $1,000 per plant as a fee. You can always trust that states will be greedy. They're greedy. Just accept it. If there's money to be made, they're still going to have prison time. And don't be fooled by the word cannabis, folks. It is the same word as marijuana. It's the same thing. You can Google it and find out cannabis and marijuana are the same. People are using it when they want to make it sound more professional. I'm going to take questions when we're done, because Frank is giving me the stare down. And I'd love to talk to you about it. But let me just say, we need to not be duped. There always are going to be people coming around wanting to sell a slick trick. And we need to not be that stupid. There are medicinal purposes that have been extracted from the plants that spare you from getting the 5 times more tar than cigarettes have. There are a lot of health detriments to inhaling smoke in your lungs. So if you can get the positive elements out of it without needing to get high, why are we wanting to encourage a society where kids are going to show up at school stoned and people are going to operate motor vehicles and more people will get killed? I'm being pragmatic about it. Don't think that new laws will mean less people in prison, because I know that's a motivator behind a lot of the push. Especially the people in the black communities are saying if we would just legalize it, we won't have so many of our people in prison. What's going to happen when people are unemployable? They're not going to have money to buy food. They're going to find other ways to fund their habits. They still need to eat and support themselves. And what's going to happen when there are more brain damaged people and kids who aren't achieving on tests what they should be doing to understand basic math? So there's a Lancet study and that shows teens who use marijuana daily before the age of 17 are more than 60% less likely to get their high school diploma than those who've never used pot. The daily adolescent users were 18 more times more likely to become dependent on marijuana, 7 times more likely to attempt suicide, and 8 times more likely to use other illegal drugs in the future. Now, you're going to hear a lot of facts, but you know what? You need to test them for yourself, because they're doing a slick sell job on us, folks, just letting you know. States that are legalizing marijuana, so far Colorado and Washington, what they've really done is created a state-run monopoly. They're not getting less government. Trust me, talk to anybody from Washington and Colorado and ask, do you have less government now? And they'll tell you, no, not really. So on the ballot next year, we are going to see California, Massachusetts, Maine, Nevada, Arizona, and most likely Missouri. We don't know. There's a process. But the point is that there's huge problems with this. You can't meter the dose. Nobody knows what it will do or how strong it is. They don't know what it is, depending on where it's grown. So if we're going to legalize it, I think we need to get rid of the FDA first, because what's the point? Of course, I know I'm speaking before an audience that is kind of wondering, why do we have more governmental bureaucracies anyway? But I do want to point out the hypocrisy in case you're ever in a debate with people and need to have some good facts. Why are the states moving to ban texting while driving and yet legalizing marijuana? There's an incongruency there. The trend nationwide is for more government, and Missouri is now setting up a prescription drug bit database, which is very invasive on what we're doing. So we're seeing that the trend nationwide, also all the laws in general. Every state here, I can guarantee you, is seeing a trend toward more laws, less freedom. And so for somebody to come along saying, oh, let's do more freedom, and you have Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians say it's a great idea, I see a red flag. I do want to tell you that this nation's been wrong before. I just thought you'd get a kick. Now, I don't want to offend any smokers in the room, but just for your humor, there was a time when doctors used to endorse cigarettes. And so just for your fun, more than 20,000 physicians like Lucky Strikes. Viceroys are the big one. Ask your dentist, and he'll recommend you smoke Viceroys. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Hey, Cal, are you awake yet? Yeah. Isn't that fun? So just to summarize marijuana, one issue in common between the Democrats, Republicans, and Libertarians is they're all pushing for this. And we need to be a little more intelligent than that. We need to not do whatever is politically popular. We've never been the party that did whatever is politically popular. But they have their different reasons, and it's a little bit scary to watch it all happen. But it ties in more with the moral degradation of the country. We're watching it. And why are they supporting, okay, I pretty much guess you know the answer. Why is it that mysteriously the Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians are all now in favor of legalizing marijuana? Tax, and they did a poll. Polls are now showing that the public is more supportive. And when you govern with your finger in the wind, that's what you're going to end up with. Once it got to the 50% plus mark, that's all it was going to take. So you can feel philosophically sound by opposing the legalization of harmful substances that cause brain damage, and the same reasons apply for why we're not in favor of allowing people to kill the unborn. If you want to go strictly on a liberty argument, then you have to advocate that women should be able to kill their unborn babies. And I don't believe anybody in the room would do that. But that's where liberty takes you. If you want to go down that path, have at it. The first person totally in favor of liberty was Lucifer. He said, God, I want to make my own world, and you know that didn't work out well for him either. So liberty for the sake of liberty is not a good idea. You want to carry it further, you can use the example of Adam and Eve. And Adam and Adam too, felt a little bit restricted in the garden. What do you mean I can't have that tree? No, not that one. Well, that's encroaching on my liberty. Well, sometimes that's a good thing. Nevertheless, I want to go into the Common Core. Common Core is not a national issue, despite the fact that you're hearing a lot about it on a national level. It is not a national issue. It is a not mentioned in the, you're laughing. It's not in the Constitution. I will tell you in case you can't read it, but when you go home, you'll be able to see this PowerPoint later, and I urge you to read it. It says, can you read it, Ricardo? I can't read it from here. Read it out loud for us.
It says, group failure to ensure no child is left behind, none of us are going anywhere.
That's it. Group failure to ensure no child is left behind. None of us are going anywhere. And when they use that word left behind, I always wondered, why don't they talk about his right behind also? But the point is, Common Core is the same thing as no child left behind. Sorry, that's kind of a crass joke. Strike it if it's too crude. Why are we going that way again and again and again? It's because they've attached federal money to it. People want to follow the money. But here's the easiest way for you to understand Common Core, because the problem we get into when we try and explain this to people is it is very complicated. So if you start something complex, you're going to have trouble winning the debate. Boil it down to 3 questions. To whom do the children belong? What do we put into their heads? And how do we measure effectiveness and scare those who fail to comply? It's that simple. If you can get those 3 questions, you can get all of Common Core real simple. This is a barf bag. I was going to bring one to you from my airplane, but I took a picture of it instead in case you're wondering if it was used or not. Because it says here, it just shows you how dumb this country has become. It says on it, for motion discomfort and baby diaper disposal, please place in waste receptacle after use not for toilet. And then it says where you can't read below, don't put it in the back of the seat pocket when you're done using it. It makes you wonder, did we have to say that? Or is this nation come to this point? These are the problems with Common Core. You see a teacher here cutting their thought bubble from a circle into a square. It's about what we put into their heads. Apparently the biggest problem, and anybody who's heard anything of it, is once the bureaucrats figured out they can get stuff into our, they can define what is being taught in a standardized manner, it's been hijacked to whoever wants to teach them their ideology. So now you've got kids pretending to be Muslims, and they're teaching a lot of Muslim ideology, and it should make us sick because it's anti-American. They're not giving the kids the education that you and I feel is important. They're leaving out the critical factors, and they're putting in so much information that is left-wing and motivated by the wrong group of people. And I'm telling you, there's a push to not even teach cursive anymore. If you want to know what's wrong with not teaching kids cursive, it's that they'll never be able, if they can't learn to write in cursive, they won't be able to read in cursive. And if they can't read in cursive, they won't be able to read our founding documents. It's a way to remove our history from them and teach them a distorted view of history. And they won't be able to even correct it. So I homeschool because I've seen the village and I don't want it raising my child. The problem with the database collected, and if you can read this, it says it's a race to the top, except you have to stop every 50 feet to measure the progress, and everyone has to go the same speed. That, folks, is what we've done to ourselves. The only way they can create a unified system is if everybody has to get into the same group think. They all have to be taught the same rules, and then you have to measure to see if they've learned the same rules. So the crux of Common Core comes down to not doing the test. Now, this is a quote from a teacher in Finland who explains her country's school system and why it is considered the best in the world. And I don't endorse everything she's saying, but she said this: "We pay teachers like doctors. Students enjoy over an hour of recess." Who can't love that? "And there's no mandatory testing. It's the opposite of what America does." The problem with these tests is, I can't believe it either, but if you you're allowed to opt out, but if you do opt out, they make you have to sit and stare. They are punishing the people who opt out. That's what it's called, sit and stare. If you want to Google sit and stare, opt out of the test, you'll find this is really happening. What self-respecting educator sees that as being valuable? No, it's not valuable. That's a punishment. There is a solution, though. Because you're allowed to opt out, you must. And you must encourage others to opt out. This is called Refuse the Common Core STDs. And now the word STD has migrated quite a bit from when we were kids. Used to be STD meant something different, and then they changed it to venereal diseases, and then they changed it to infections, STIs. But anyway, nevertheless, this is not that. The STD is the Standards Testing Data Collection. And this is awesome. In fact, yesterday in the news, they said that in Seattle, Washington, of all surprises, there was all the juniors in their high school opted out of the test together. They can do that. We can do that. We We can take the country back. There are things we can do. There are techniques. A tax-supported compulsory education system is the complete model of the totalitarian state. So I want to explain how cool local government is. If we want to protect ourselves against a totalitarian government, we have to look at how we can affect these local issues, and Common Core is very local. One example is, you remember Sheriff Richard Mack, and he said, "We will take America back, sheriff by sheriff, county by county, and state by state." The local issues can be affected by local activism, and he has proven to us why local government is the most important government of all. When local officials start honoring the Constitution, it will become contagious, and other people will copy each other. This is a poor example of local control. This is the mayor of Houston, and if you recall, she's the one who said, "I don't want anybody talking against homosexuality," and she subpoenaed the sermons from her pastors in her congregation. So if you think local government isn't powerful, it is. Local government affects pornography, the National Day of Prayer, alcohol permits, tax increases, property rights, zoning, why I say naked dancing. In Missouri, in the city, I spent more time in local government even than state government. And we dealt with sexually oriented businesses, and we said they can exist because they're legal to exist, but they have to be in the industrial court. And finally, religious freedom. So the price of apathy toward public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Now that's kind of a negative quote. Too bad Plato took the negative side of it. We need to turn it around and say the price of freedom is to get good people elected. So in summary, we are a conscience, and the law is the report card on our culture. I'm just going to show you, because Frank wants me to leave now. Did you hold that sign up for the last speaker? I don't think you, oh, you did? Okay. Well, okay, just want to make sure we're being fair, because he encroached into my time. So I assumed you were going to be more generous with me to make up for it. Okay, well, let me get to the last slide. The one who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. And the one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been before. Thank you for walking alone.